Welcome to A1 Storyteller, where we bring you the most powerful, eye-opening, and shocking stories that expose injustice, reveal hidden truths, and prove that karma always finds its way. Today's story is one that will make your blood boil and bring tears to your eyes. It's a story of cruelty, abuse of power, and the unstoppable force of justice. Imagine being a young girl, full of dreams and innocence, only to be humiliated and degraded by the very system meant to protect you. Imagine a power-hungry judge taking it upon himself to strip a child of her dignity in front of an entire courtroom. His decision? A brutal and unjust punishment, to shave off her hair simply because she dared to be herself. But here's what the judge didn't know. This little girl was not just anybody. She had someone in her corner, someone powerful, fearless, and ready to fight for her. Because the moment this heartless judge crossed the line, he unknowingly declared war on the wrong family. This is the story of how one man's unchecked power met its ultimate downfall, how a young girl's resilience ignited a movement, and how the truth can never be silenced. Stay with us until the very end, because the twist in this story will shock you to your core. And before we dive in, if you love powerful, gripping stories like this, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to A1 Storyteller right now. Turn on that notification bell so you never miss another mind-blowing story. Now let's begin, because this is one story you'll never forget. It was supposed to be a simple hearing, at least that's what Tasha Reynolds thought when she walked into the family courthouse that morning, holding her 12-year-old daughter's hand. Maya, a bright and confident young girl, had done nothing wrong. Yet here they were, standing before Judge Harold Whitmore, a man whose reputation for harsh, racially biased rulings was well known. The courtroom was dimly lit, the cold wooden benches filled with people waiting for their cases to be heard. At the front of the room, Judge Whitmore sat high on his bench, peering down at Maya with an expression of distaste. His silver-rimmed glasses perched low on his nose, his thin lips pressed together as if he had already made up his mind before hearing a single word. Maya clutched her mother's hand tightly, her small fingers shaking. She had never been in a courtroom before, and the weight of the moment pressed heavily on her young shoulders, but she refused to cry. She refused to let this man see her fear. "Mrs. Reynolds," Judge Whitmore's voice rang out, dripping with condescension, "you understand why your daughter is in my courtroom today?" Tasha straightened her back, her voice steady and unwavering. "My daughter is here because her school has unfairly targeted her, Your Honor. They claim her natural hair is unprofessional and distracting, but we both know this is nothing more than a racist policy designed to shame and punish black children." Murmurs rippled through the room, but Judge Whitmore was unmoved. He tapped his gavel against the wooden bench, silencing the whispers. "The school has a code of conduct, and all students are required to follow it," he said, his voice cold. "Your daughter refused. That is defiance." Maya took a deep breath, summoning the courage to speak. "Sir, my hair is a part of who I am. Why should I be punished for being myself?" Judge Whitmore scoffed. "Young lady, this courtroom is no place for backtalk. The law is the law, and as an officer of this court, I will ensure that it is upheld." Tasha's fists clenched at her sides. "With all due respect, Your Honor, the law does not allow you to dictate how a child wears her hair. This is a matter of racial discrimination, and we are prepared to fight it in a higher court if necessary." The judge's smirk widened. He loved when people challenged him because it only made their fall even greater, and today he was determined to remind this mother and daughter who held the power. "Well then, let me make this simple," Judge Whitmore said, his voice oozing with cruelty. "If Maya refuses to abide by the school's policy, she will face immediate disciplinary action." Tasha's heart pounded. What kind of action? The judge leaned forward, locking eyes with Maya. "Her hair will be cut right here, right now. If she refuses, she will be held in contempt of court." A collective gasp filled the room. Tasha stepped forward in disbelief. "You can't do this! This is an abuse of power!" Judge Whitmore banged his gavel. "Bailiff, take the girl to the back and ensure the order is carried out, now!" Maya let out a terrified cry as two uniformed bailiffs moved toward her. Tasha lunged forward, but the officers blocked her path. "Mommy!" Maya screamed as she was dragged toward the back of the courthouse. Tasha's cries filled the room, but the judge merely sat back, satisfied with his ruling. He thought he had won, but what he didn't know was that he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Maya sobbed as she was shoved into a cold, sterile back room. The fluorescent lights above buzzed faintly, casting an eerie glow over the space. A middle-aged woman in a gray uniform stood by the sink, holding a pair of electric clippers. "Please," Maya whimpered, backing away, her arms wrapped protectively around her curls. "Please don't do this," the woman sighed, her expression unreadable. "I'm sorry, sweetheart, but I have my orders." She reached for Maya, but before she could take another step, the door slammed open with a force that shook the walls. A deep, commanding voice echoed through the room. "Step away from my daughter, now!" The woman with the clippers froze. The bailiff's standing guard turned, and his face immediately drained of color. Standing in the doorway was a tall, broad-shouldered man in a full military uniform, his chest decorated with rows of medals. His presence alone was intimidating, his expression one of pure fury. It was General Marcus Maya's father, a high-ranking military officer known for his unwavering sense of justice. General Reynolds was feared and respected in equal measure. He had led thousands of soldiers into battle, commanded war zones, and stood before the nation's most powerful leaders. And now he stood before a bailiff who had no idea what he had just gotten himself into. Maya's eyes widened in shock and relief. "Daddy?" she cried, running toward him. He caught her in his arms, holding her close. "Are you okay, baby?" he whispered. She nodded, tears still streaming down her face. General Reynolds lifted his head and locked eyes with the trembling bailiff. "You have exactly 3 seconds to explain why you thought it was acceptable to lay a hand on my daughter." The bailiff stammered. Judge Whitmore gave the order. We were just following." "I don't give a damn about Whitmore's orders," General Reynolds boomed, his voice shaking the room. "You do not humiliate a child under my watch, and you sure as hell don't put your hands on my daughter." The tension in the room was suffocating. The bailiff took a nervous step back, his hands raised in surrender. Then, Judge Whitmore himself appeared in the doorway, smug as ever. "What's all this noise?" he demanded. Then he saw who was standing before him, and his arrogance vanished instantly. "You?" he breathed, his face going pale. General Reynolds smirked coldly. "Oh, you recognize me now, don't you?" Judge Whitmore stiffened. He had heard the name General Marcus Reynolds before. He had read about him, the decorated war hero, the man who had stood before world leaders and dictated terms of war. And now he was the furious father standing before him, ready to end his career. The judge tried to regain his composure. "General Reynolds, this is a court matter." "Not anymore." The general's voice was a growl. He stepped closer, his eyes burning with anger. "You think you can humiliate my child and walk away unscathed?" Judge Whitmore swallowed hard. "Here's what's going to happen," General Reynolds continued, his voice calm but laced with deadly intent. "You're going to walk back into that courtroom and reverse your order immediately. Then, you're going to issue a public apology." The judge's lips trembled. "And if I refuse?" The general's smirk deepened. "Then I will personally see to it that your career, reputation, and entire life crumble before your eyes." Judge Whitmore's fate was sealed, and the courtroom was about to witness a reckoning like never before. Judge Whitmore had always believed he was untouchable. His entire career had been built on wielding power over others, especially those he deemed beneath him. But for the first time, he felt small, cornered, and afraid. General Marcus Reynolds stood before him, a man whose mere presence commanded obedience. His reputation extended far beyond this courtroom. He was a man respected by world leaders and feared by enemies of the state. If he made a promise, he kept it. And right now, he had promised to destroy Whitmore's career if he didn't reverse his order. The judge cleared his throat, trying to regain control. "This is still my courtroom, General. I have the authority here." General Reynolds chuckled darkly, his sharp eyes narrowing. "Not for long." With that, he pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. Within seconds, the courtroom doors burst open and 3 uniformed military officials marched in. their polished boots echoing against the floor. Behind them came a group of journalists, cameras flashing. The courtroom erupted into whispers. Judge Whitmore's face turned a ghostly white. "Since you like the spotlight, Judge," General Reynolds said, his voice cool, "let's put your actions on display for the world to see." A female officer stepped forward and handed the general a stack of papers. "These," General Reynolds continued, "are formal complaints filed against you. It seems Maya isn't the only child you've discriminated against. You've built an entire career off of targeting black families, issuing unfair rulings and abusing your power." The cameras zoomed in, capturing every moment. "Judge Whitmore," one reporter called out, "how do you respond to these allegations? Were you aware that your rulings disproportionately affect minority children?" Another journalist stepped forward. "What do you have to say to the families who claim you've ruined their lives?" The judge's hands trembled. His career had always thrived in the shadows, where no one questioned his authority, but now, under the harsh glare of cameras and the unblinking eyes of the public, his lies were laid bare. The room fell silent as General Reynolds leaned in, his voice dangerously low. "You have two options," he said. "One, you publicly reverse your ruling, apologize to my daughter, and resign from your position, effective immediately." Judge Whitmore gulped. "And the second option?" The general's smirk was cold. "You refuse, and I ensure that you leave this courtroom in handcuffs." Judge Whitmore's breath came in short, panicked gasps. He could already see the headlines. "Racist judge exposed for targeting black children, facing federal investigation." He had no way out. Slowly, with defeat etched into his face, he turned to the packed courtroom. I hereby reverse my prior ruling," his voice cracked. "Maya Reynolds is free to wear her hair however she pleases. I deeply apologize for my actions." Tasha gasped, clutching her daughter's hand in relief. Maya's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but victory. "And your resignation?" General Reynolds prompted. Judge Whitmore hesitated, but he knew the fight was over. "Effective immediately," he mumbled. The courtroom exploded into cheers. But the general wasn't finished yet. "Now," he said, turning to the press, "I have a statement to make." And what he said next shook the entire city. The video of Judge Whitmore's downfall spread like wildfire. Within hours, it had been shared across social media platforms, news networks, and international media. The country was outraged. People rallied in the streets, holding signs that read, "Our hair, our identity, justice for Maya, end racist courtrooms." Civil rights organizations launched investigations into Judge Whitmore's past rulings. Parents of other children he had discriminated against came forward sharing their stories. Lawsuits piled up against him. The school board, desperate to save face, repealed its discriminatory policy and issued a public apology. The superintendent was forced to resign, and several teachers involved in enforcing the policy were fired. But the biggest shockwave came when the state attorney general announced an official probe into the entire courthouse system, uncovering a web of corruption that extended beyond Whitmore. The city was on fire with change, and at the center of it all stood Maya and her family, a symbol of justice, resilience, and the power of standing up against oppression. Meanwhile, Judge Whitmore, once feared, once respected, was now a disgraced figure, hounded by the very system he had abused. But karma wasn't done with him yet. 1 week later, Judge Whitmore sat in his dimly lit study, staring at the stack of legal documents before him. Lawsuits, criminal charges, a subpoena from the FBI. His life had crumbled overnight. A knock on the door made him flinch. He turned to see a familiar face. His longtime friend, attorney Richard Lawson. "Richard," Whitmore sighed, "tell me you've got good news." The attorney took a deep breath. "I don't." Whitmore's stomach churned. "You're officially disbarred," Richard said flatly. "The state found your rulings unethical. You'll never practice law again." Whitmore slumped in his chair, the weight of his downfall crushing him. "And that's not all," Richard continued. "The Department of Justice is pressing federal charges. You could face prison time." Whitmore's hands shook. "Prison? For what?" Richard's lips curled in a humorless smile. You really thought you could get away with this forever? You destroyed families, abused your position. Now it's your turn to suffer." The former judge's face drained of color. Meanwhile, across town, Maya and her family were celebrating. At a large community event, hundreds gathered to support Maya and other children affected by similar discrimination. General Reynolds took the stage, standing tall with his daughter by his side. "Tonight," he said, his voice carrying across the crowd, "we celebrate justice, we celebrate strength, and we send a message to every person in power who thinks they can oppress our children." His voice hardened. "You will be held accountable." The crowd erupted into applause. Maya, standing beside him, smiled brightly. She had been humiliated, targeted, and threatened, but she had emerged stronger. Her curls bounced as she turned to the audience, holding her microphone tightly. "I want every kid watching this to know, you are perfect just the way you are," she said, "and no one, no judge, no school, no bully gets to tell you otherwise." Tears glistened in her mother's eyes as the crowd cheered louder than ever, and across town, Judge Whitmore sat alone in the darkness, realizing he had lost everything. Because in the end, karma never misses. And there you have it, a story of power, injustice, and the unstoppable force of karma. This isn't just a story, it's a wake-up call, a reminder that no matter how much power someone has, justice will always find its way to them. That no amount of oppression, discrimination, or abuse of authority can stand against the strength of truth. Judge Whitmore thought he could control lives with his rulings. He thought he was untouchable. But what he failed to realize is that when you mess with the wrong people, karma comes knocking, fast and hard. Maya's story is bigger than one courtroom, one school, or one judge. It represents countless children, countless families, and countless battles fought every single day against discrimination. But today we saw the power of standing up, fighting back, and refusing to be silenced. And if you loved watching justice unfold, then you're in the right place. Here on A1 Storyteller, we bring you the most shocking, inspiring, and powerful stories that remind us all, justice always wins. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. And now, I've got one question for you. Have you ever seen karma work this fast? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about it. And as always, stay strong, stay fearless, and never stop fighting for what's right. This is A1 Storyteller, signing off. Until next time,